And then they set up fake organisations to sidetrack the narrative and distort it. The group known as ITNJ was founded after ITCCS exposed the Vatican and the British royals as child molesters, and the ITNJ, International Tribunal for Natural Justice, was founded in 2015. Of course, this was 2 years after Kevin Annett and others had held a tribunal by and for the people and came to a verdict against Pope Benedict and Queen Elizabeth and Philip back in 2013. And 1 year later, the verdict against Pope Francis. The original one was Ratzinger, or was it Reitzinger, or von Reitz? It all sounds the same to me. Maybe it is. Well, ITNJ is the Second International Tribunal, was founded as a direct response to the threat that the ITCCS posed to the elite in general, and specifically the Vatican and the British royals. And there are many signs that confirm this stance. So once again, I want to thank the person posting under the pseudonym Ella. She compiled all of this. I will chime in a few more bits, but it's fairly extensive and it's all good stuff. Of course, I'm going to chime in on Mr. Steele later on. And the ITNJ Judicial Commission of Inquiry into Human Trafficking and Child Sex Abuse will investigate elite pedophile networks and satanic ritual abuse for 9 to 12 months. And the first hearing of this commission were held in April, the 16th to the 18th. And the witness testimonies are put online, and the candour of the testimonies need to be applauded. The people who are on the Commission of Inquiry, Ella did a bit of research into who is behind ITNJ and its Commission of Inquiry, and it makes you wonder if there is indeed a hidden agenda. It doesn't make me wonder. If Steele's involved, it's dodgy. It's as simple as that. Anyway, Sasha Stone, Commissioner and founder of Humanitad and the ITNJ. Now, Humanitad is an avid supporter of the United Nations Agenda 2130 in regards to human sustainability, or non-sustainability, I might add. And the ITNJ is described as the principal judicial organ of Humanitad and the New Earth Trust. Really, we'll see about that as well. Of course, as is common in the alternative media, Sasha Stone is not his real name. Oops. It's Simon Jean Paul Sasha Adams, and he is the son of Sir Walter Adams. Now, Sir Walter Adams was a top official in the British establishment. He was also a Rockefeller Fellow and part of the Rockefeller Foundation. Furthermore, Adams was appointed Officer of the Order of the British Empire, OBE, in 1945, and a Companion of the Order of St. Michael and St. George in 1952, and was knighted in 1970. And his son, Simon Jean Paul Sasha Adams, aka Sasha Stone, is also good friends with Ciro Orsini. That's one of the original 13 bloodlines, along with the Aldobrinis and the Medicis. These are the black nobility people. The Pope is 6 levels down from the Black Pope, which is where generally the Black Pope originates from, these families. And Ciro Orsini was listed as one of the directors of Sasha Stone's Music Company Limited. He is an offspring of the infamous Italian Orsini family, who are part of the black nobility, and he owns the restaurant chain Pomodoro Pizza. Oh my. The main venue located in London. And even on Pomodoro's Pizza's website, they even brag about Orsini's aristocratic background. Now, the Orsinis, for those who don't know, were one of the most influential Italian nobility families in medieval Italy. And members of the Orsini family include 5 popes, 18 saints, 40 cardinals, and numerous significant political and religious figures. These are the controllers, the order, and the family can be traced back to the Middle Ages. I wish someone would send them back there permanently. and goes as far back as the Roman period, so the bloodline is very long and also very strong. So the facts are that Sacha Stone, the founder of Humanitad and the ITNJ, has links to the UN, the Rockefeller Foundation, British establishment, and Italian black nobility, and also CIA. So who's on the panel? Sir John Walsh of Branagh, presiding judge, ITNJ Chief Justice, and the links between Sir John Walsh of Branagh and the British and Australian establishments, as well as the list of titles and memberships, are quite extensive. He has links to the British Crown and the Temple Bar Association, and seems to love aristocratic titles, and detractors even claim he made up some of them himself. And yet he is appointed the ITNJ judge for life and sits on a golden throne during the hearings of the Commission of Inquiry. A golden throne for the so-called People's Court? Really? Next, the Commissioner, His Grace Bishop Riyah Abu el-Assal, who is an Israeli-Palestinian Anglican bishop. doesn't really mix that, does it? Something rather off with that. And he's part of the Church of England and thereby a subsidiary of the Vatican. Now, Robert David Steele, Chief Counsel, and according to the script, a former CIA top official. No, he's not former at all. Period. Steele was Neil Keenan's handler, as Neil Keenan was a Langley asset working for the Rothschilds and the Chinese elders, both of them, aka the Asian faction. Steele is also promoter of open source, which is their version of AI, and he's also the handler and supplier of information to Jordan Sather. Mr. Steele is not former anything. He's a Langley agent and is also involved in the NATO group. Wherever Steele goes, it involves misdirect, as you will see from this piece. William Binney is the next one. Commissioner and former NSA top official. Really? These are really representative of the people. NSA, spy. Steele, spy. In fact, Steele was a spy and an assassin, which he admitted. And these are representatives of the people. Establishments, all of them. Now, the ITNJ is endorsed by big names such as, well, I wouldn't call him big, but I think he's been exposed enough. Stephen Greer, sadly Paul Hellyer, also Michael Tellinger, to name a few. But conspicuously, well, it's not conspicuously to me, it's deliberate. Despite all the work that Kevin and Annette and his team done, Kevin has never been approached by ITNJ to be involved. That, to me, is fishy, and I smell a rat. How can you ignore someone who's been doing it for so long, right at the forefront, and then you set up a copy or mirrored version tribunal and not include someone who's actually gone right up to the faces of the Pope and the Queen and handed them arrest warrants? What does that tell you? Now, Kevin did send contact to them, and they never responded to his mails and questions in regards to their funding or invitations to collaborate with the ITCCS. Just ignored. So when you read the treaty of the ITNJ, we may have to look into that, because if it says treaty, they have no legal or lawful right to create any sort of treaty. They're not sovereign. Only sovereigns can do treaties. We may look into that. Ellis says when you listen to many interviews of Robert David Steele and Sacha Stone, you'll discover that they are full of conflicting statements. Of course they are, because they're talking out of the backside, that's why. And allegedly the ITNJ is based on natural law. Oops. We won't be having natural law going forward. Given the name, the International Tribunal for Natural Justice, you would think that they would rule based on natural law. But nothing could be further from the truth. We are not going back to natural or common law. We are actually going forward with divine law. Whether people like that idea or not, that's what we're going to go going forward. Divine law. So the name tribunal is kind of misleading, and normally a tribunal is a court of justice and a body established to settle certain types of dispute, often for special court cases with international significance. But the ITNJ and its commission is not interested in prosecution or punitive measures. They strive for truth and reconciliation. Now, the findings of the Commission of Inquiry will be sent to the UN, which is now defunct, as well as to international and national law enforcement institutions that, by the way, do not operate based on natural law. Now, a quote at the end of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry, and the panel of ITN justices will issue judgments, declarations and recommendations. Some recommendations may be to agencies of government to investigate and take further action to prosecute cases that fall under their jurisdiction. These judgments, declarations and recommendations will have the weight of law, although the ITNJ does not have an enforcement mechanism. That's not what they're about, that's why. Any enforcement agency such as Interpol or a national or local law enforcement agency of any country would be acting within their own laws to take further action based on the findings of the Judicial Commission. They claim that only the current judicial institutes have the mandate to prosecute. Therefore, the ITNJ refers to the International Court of Justice in The Hague, which is a branch of the UN, former UN, Interpol, Scotland Yard. Well, they're a waste of time, Scotland Yard, because they knew about issues going into the Buckingham Palace 30 years ago when they were investigating Jimmy Savile and choked. So that's a complete waste of time as well. And other national enforcement institutions. But they do admit that these institutions are subverted and only serve the interest of large corporations. So why are they working with them then? So these same organisations that they're putting forward are expected to investigate and prosecute the elite pedophiles. You know, these are the same ones that have protected them and turned a blind eye for decades. Furthermore, these established institutions use statutory law, which is law of the sea, and not natural law, which is law of the land. So in other words, natural law is not applied anywhere. But they came up with two things for the ITNJ: absolution and redemption, which is straight out of the Vatican vocabulary. And besides the mantra of truth and reconciliation, Sasha Stone, the spokesperson, also claims that the organisation strives for absolution and redemption. Now, the term for absolution is an act of absolving, a freeing from blame or guilt, a release from consequences, obligations or penalties. Now, the Roman Catholic theology, a remission of sin or of the punishment of sin made by a priest in the sacrament of penance on the grounds of authority received from Christ. Really? So according to Sasha Stone, they're about absolving the criminals, freeing them from blame or guilt, and releasing them from consequences, any obligations or penalties. And redemption, an act of redeeming or atoning for a fault or mistake, or the state of being redeemed from sins for those who open up to God. So if you've ritually sacrificed a load of young children, you just say, hi to God, I'm sorry, and that's it. All atoned or redeemed, absolved, everything. This is what ITNJ is about. More goons in the alternative media making out they're doing good for the people when they're enriching themselves and sidetracking the information to get the same people off over and over and over again. So Sasha Stone claims that the ITNJ and its commission will not be another whitewash, but there are many signs that this is exactly what it is. First of all, demanding redemption. Forgiveness and reconciliation is shifting the blame onto the victims. When the victims or the people are not able or willing to forgive and reconcile with the criminals, the victims are at fault. Sasha Stone suggests that in order to avoid public lynchings and revenge, absolution and redemption is the only alternatives. Who made him God? As Ella said, it is irresponsible to suggest that there are only two options available, revenge or redemption. There are many ways of how we can deal with pedocriminals and how they can be removed from society. It's irresponsible to call for a free card for these perpetrators. Pedocriminals that not only rape children, toddlers and babies, but also torture them, kill them and drink their blood. And these are the same psychopaths that create plans for genocide and World War III. The public has to see them for what they are, predators and parasites. In order to protect the people, these pedocriminals must be removed from society. We can discuss in which way they need to be removed, but we have to acknowledge these monsters are extremely dangerous. And I find it very telling that Robert David Steele refuses to speak out that the perpetrators must be locked up. Well, as a current Langley agent, they have got away with murder and everything else, MK Ultra, you name it, and they're still walking amongst us. If I never see Steele's face again, I'll be more than happy. He's another one that needs running off the internet altogether. We have a choice. It's no use going and trolling him. Shut him off. Report his videos. Do we really want people absolving and redemption if they just confess their sins to God? Which one? You really think Anu cares what you're doing? I don't. After repeated pressing questions, Mr. Steele, in the Sarah Westall interview, he keeps repeating their mantra of truth and reconciliation. Yes, like the drone he is. As Ella says, no one size fits all. Deciding on the appropriate measures will not be an easy task. And we don't need CIA and NSA agents involved in that task either. Or establishment people. They're just there to protect their own. As Ella says, there simply cannot be one size fits all. We must not forget that many politicians and celebrities are lured into these pedophile traps and desperately want to get out. Britney Spears, hello. And these people need to be given the opportunity to do so. Some pedophiles can be repaired, and those who are sincerely willing to face the consequences of their actions and are willing to turn to the light maybe should be given a second chance. But there are also more severe cases that are beyond repair, absolutely. And these monsters need to be locked up for life or given a pill to eliminate themselves. I certainly do not want to reconcile with pedocriminals, and the infuriating fact that someone is even suggesting this seems to me that they might be part of the problem themselves. Let's applaud the disclosure that comes out of the testimonies and inquiry report by the Commission, but let's be aware of the ITNJ mantra as truth and reconciliation, which turns into absolving, absolution and redemption. That only benefits the cabal and their elite pedos. And it's up to the public to turn on these clowns, because it needs to go in a completely different direction. It's another example of the clowns interfering into valid stories in the alternative media. And of course this show, and when I was on Cosmic Voice along with Randy Morgans and others, have exposed a whole plethora of them. And yes, we've got a lot of flack over certain names, but over time they were all proven correct. The thing that bothers me is the people who come forward, because whilst they're being interviewed, quote unquote, one wonders, are they being interfered with? So I hope the people of Holland warn Ronald Bernhard to stay away from the ITNJ. We don't need their type of goons in the alternative media. We've tolerated enough sidetracking, lies, confusion and misdirect without adding another group into what is, quite frankly, one of the most hideous things that we have to cover in the alternative media. Crimes of church and state involving popes, not just one. Top cardinals all over the world, bishops, you name it. Again, it's not an isolated church that people think, oh yeah, there's always a few bad ones. No. Try most of them. And they're backed and supported by politicians and government. police, judges, lawyers, hospitals, media. Yes, you, Peter Fonda, enjoy your exposure. You should have kept your mouth shut.